Welcome, my friends. This is Maniacal Incorporated, and you join me as Ireland stands on the cusp of a major economic expansion. We're going to make a few changes to some of the industries that we're focusing on in Ireland at the moment. We can see there at the top, there is a big demand for oil in the British market. We have started to establish some whaling stations in Bougainville. This is predominantly because of a need for the food industries in Leinster. So as our food industries increase, that's going to create increased demand for oil. There isn't exactly all that much of a demand at the moment, but the big things that we're focusing on are hardwood and silk. Because if we look at clothing, there's still a big demand for clothing and for luxury clothing, yet silk is quite cheap at the moment. So we're going to come to Ulster and we're going to change to craftsman sewing. So that's going to be a bit of an increase as we start using silk. In the last episode, we started generating electricity. Now, we're not generating much, and to actually help with that, we're going to expand it by 1. We have a sizable gold reserve and an investment pool at the moment. So we're going to increase that by 1. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to undo something that I did last week, which is where we created electric fences. I'm going to put that back to standard fences, and instead, in Connacht, in our logging camps, we are going to set this to electric sawmills. And we have this on hardwood production already. I'd already made that change. So that's generating 50 hardwood. There's a pretty hefty demand at the moment, so we're going to fill out the remaining 2 spots and deforest Connacht completely. One of the reasons there's such a demand for hardwood is because there is a deficit of man-o'-wars at the moment, so we're going to try and help sort that out by expanding our shipyards in Munster. And in Leinster, we're going to increase our glassworks because there is still a pretty hefty demand for porcelain. And then to completely screw up our build order, I'm actually going to put in a construction sector in Connacht for the first time. I think Munster and Leinster. We won't be doing a huge amount of advancing in Ulster, bar our textile mills. So I think we can get away with that for a while. Do you know what? We'll up the textile mill as well. Right, we are finally in a position to actually start up. I have put all of the construction sectors to the top of the queue. We're going to start up. We have a couple of different things that we want to focus on. I also want to get more government administration in, 1 in Ulster to handle the tax deficit, and 2 more in Munster. 3 more. I think we're going to have 7 shortly. So we want to get up to 10 for one of the journal entries for some reason. And that's also going to help us get more bureaucracy, which we're going to use to actually start setting up trade routes. We haven't been dealing with a lot of trade routes at the moment, but we are generating a lot of goods that we have a tremendous amount of, and we're going to want to try and make a bit more profit for them. Oh, those Canadians. What a chaotic decade it has been in Celebes. Irish colonists arrived shortly after Dutch colonists. There was a rebellion, which was eventually put down by Ireland's vastly superior military. And, of course, it had been hit by an earthquake just as that rebellion began. Now it has been hit by a cyclone. So it's a tragedy. We could just take 25% devastation in the area. We will, for 5 years, take on an extra 1,800 in government expenses to reduce it to 10% devastation. Yeah. I was trying to think if we had all that many industries out here. Not a huge amount. We have our dye, our tobacco and tea plantations. We have a good chunk of logging camps that could eventually be set up. We were maybe a bit too overzealous in adding silk to the production chain in Ulster because there isn't exactly a huge amount of it in the market. However, while we're out here in Celebes, we're seeing dye. There is a demand for dye, so we will add, I think we'll add 3 more here. And for our tiny, slow-growing holdings in the Congo, we're going to add a port. And, we might as well start on the coal mines, because we are seeing a deficit in coal. Coal is pretty hard to come by anyway. Oh, there is a big deficit in coal in the market at the moment. So there, just in the last few weeks, a massive jump in our GDP. Probably the largest jump we've ever seen, if we ignore the drop that was caused there, I presume, by the Civil War when Munster and Connacht tried to split off. We have just discovered the steam donkey. So for coal mines, iron mines, lead mines, we're expanding our lead mines in Leinster because there is an increased demand for lead. Sulphur mines, logging camps. So it's going to be of benefit in a few areas. Our massive jump in GDP, look at that. It's just going straight up. Our massive jump in GDP, of course, is coming at a bit of a cost. We've almost wiped out our credit, but that has expanded from, I think, 2.7 million when we started our expansion a year ago to 3 million. And I'd be pretty confident that once we get these built, that we'll drag ourselves out of that pretty quickly. What's the interest payments? Nearly 6,000 a week, on top of the money that we're now sending to Salibas. If we take a look at construction goods, wood, do you know what? Wood could be lower considering the amount that's being spent, but iron, that is one of the largest expenses in terms of construction, so we might actually spend some time trying to get the price of iron down by expanding the handful of iron mines that we have. The handful of iron mine, singular, that we have. And having just discovered the steam donkey, I think we're going to put our next research on pump jacks. So coffee plantations, dye plantations, tea plantations, tobacco plantations, sugar plantations. We have all of those, and it will unlock oil rigs. As we're getting buildings built, the amount of money that we're spending weekly is dropping. Not dropping fast enough, however. We are very close to hitting our limit. You know what, we're not? Well, we are. We're 500,000 off, so we should get these 2 buildings built. The 2 lead mines in Leinster. And that'll wipe off 21,000 in construction goods. So I suppose the next area that we will look at might very well be iron. Actually, once we get this building up, we're going to change some of the production methods. We're going to check some of the production methods that have been unlocked as a result of that steam donkey. After coming out of our massive expansion drive, we were generating about minus 400 money per week. And by changing the production methods in a number of different buildings, we've actually just gotten that up to a profit of 1.5 thousand. What I've mainly done is added the steam donkey to a number of different areas. The iron mines, if we add the steam donkey, will actually generate... They were generating less by adding the steam donkey. Now they're generating more, so 13... dropped to 8 the last time, but that was maybe before I switched to Boom Goes the Dynamite. So we've also put Boom Goes the Dynamite in most of our areas as well, in most of the mines, actually all of them. So they're now all carbon copies of each other. I haven't activated transport anywhere yet, because we're not producing any tickets to ride, so we'll hold off on that for a while. Also, everything has been switched to publicly traded, so we're getting plus 14,000 a week into our investment pool, and we'll be able to go on another round of expansion quite shortly, even before we get out of the deficit that we're in. And as a result of the massive jump in our GDP, I presume it's predominantly the massive jump in the GDP, we are just outside the ranks of being a... We're still a minor power, we're almost an unrecognized major power. The great and mighty Ireland. Human rights is unlocked. We've just seen that, where's it gone to? Austria has ended its embargo with Great Britain in the middle of a war with Great Britain. Well done, Austria. If we take a look at our institutions, we have colonial affairs at the max. However, education is quite low at the moment, so I think we're going to put it up to level 2. That's going to knock 75 off of our bureaucracy. Level 3 of law enforcement looks a-okay. We're actually losing a chunk of radicals due to predominantly, I imagine, increases in the standard of living. And Pop's dying. I'd been waiting for a pop-up like this for a while, and you know what? He's heard that we are increasing our spending on education, so maybe he's trying to get a tax break. John Glenavy of the Industrialists wants to spend some of his personal wealth to create UUJ, University of Ulster Jordanstown. A wonderful idea. It just hit me now, maybe it's Queen's University Belfast he's making. We have just had an election result, the Conservative Party on 34 and the Free Trade Party on 34. The Liberal Party is falling way behind. So here's the Conservatives. The landowners are just barely being kept happy. Like I said, we're probably going to continue to support the Conservative Party while Harry Hamilton remains as king, but he is a realist and he knows that he needs the money from the industrialists to basically keep the party going. So the industrialists have been shown a tremendous level of support of recent, and that's exactly what we want from them, this plus 20% capitalist investment pool contribution. So no doubt, under the republic that his son will usher in, we'll see the industrialists becoming quite powerful. I asked in the last episode who people supported, and there was a lot of support for the trade unionists and the intelligentsia. And actually, I think the rural folk have split off from the Liberal Party. They have indeed. So yeah, we might see the Liberal Party becoming a bit more powerful as well in the decades ahead. If we look at how things stand at the moment in our market, these are the overall pop needs of our people. So the average standard of living for all pops, they're paying just under the base price. The main issues are clothing, porcelain, glass, tobacco, coal, and opium, old boy, and electricity. So the ones that we're going to need to focus on going forward, I think, are clothing and electricity. Porcelain, because we have seen a drop in lead. Our lead mines have started to become unprofitable. So if we can continue to produce glass and porcelain, we will see our lead mines continue to be profitable. So I think they're mostly the ones that we can deal with, and tobacco, which we will be taking from our colonies. What a great and glorious couple of years of economic expansion it has been, and the GDP is still just going up and up and up. It was 17.1 when I started talking. We haven't managed to clear a huge amount of the deficit that we have. The investment pool is coming together quite nicely. I am going to try and handle that taxation deficit that we're suffering in Ulster, however. And I'm going to look at increasing our university in Leinster. I want to get this up to 10, and I want to get this government admin in Munster up to 10. We're beginning to see a severe shortage of silk, and instead of cutting back our clothing industry, instead of changing back to just making normal clothing, the industrialists, the capitalists, they have to dress nicely when they are running the tobacco plantations out in Irish Celebes. So just for them, we'll try and open this market. I'm not too sure how it's going to go, considering that we have this war going on, and I presume Austria sinking some convoys. And we're still seeing a very hefty demand for glass. So we will increase the glassworks in Waterford, the Luxury Waterford Crystal that is being produced. Violence against English people. Oh no. So it's an event in Leinster. I think there was a rugby match on because members of the Irish people in Ulster are attacking English people in Leinster. This is just... I wish there was another option. There's nothing here. It's just a single button that says, I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. Poor old English people watching myself and Gartner Ireland's playthroughs. They're getting an awful amount of abuse and an awful amount of discrimination. I have been... Anytime there have been options popping up about discriminating against the non-approved... Well, what would you call them? The unaccepted groups in Ireland, the English and the Scottish, I've generally been going with the options, oh, there's nothing we can do. I haven't been instituting, and I know there's been some demands for it, migration controls over here. I don't think we're going to go for multiculturalism. It seems to be overpowered, so I'm just going to see what it's like for now, without instituting multiculturalism. And we have pump jacks unlocked. I actually confused myself, and I thought we'd already researched this. So this is going to add automatic irrigation to coffee plantations, dye plantations, tea and tobacco, and it will also open up oil rigs. I've been wondering for the last while, should I, and I think we will, open up another power plant. We're seeing that our cash reserves are dropping and dropping severely for our shipyards, which is kind of surprising. No, it's not. The price has absolutely tanked for man of wars. But let's see if we can go for civilian shipbuilding. Will that be... Never mind. Extensive military will actually generate more. Is it extensive military shipbuilding? Why is that? Because I was looking at the wrong one. Clippers has dropped off. There's always a demand for men o' war. We started colonies with the express desire to get away from the bad weather. Celebes has been hit by its third natural disaster in a decade, I think. Second cyclone, and it was hit by an earthquake as well at some stage. 3,100. I don't really know what devastation does. Elsewise, it'll be 25% devastation. There is a chance that a famine will occur in the upcoming months. We will send the aid. So that's one thing that it does. So here's 10% devastation, minus 10% migration, attraction, minus 10% infrastructure, and plus 10% mortality. And the daily change is minus 0.10%. Out here in Congo HQ, I've started, you can just barely see it, trying to found another colony down here. It's not going great. And the Irish Congo also isn't doing very well. The colony is growing very slowly, but if we look at the buildings, our coal mine is unable to fully hire. We have 0 peasants in the region, or 0 labourers to take up the job. Population is already at 49% Irish. So what we're going to do is try and figure out how to... I know it's around here somewhere. Where's decrees? Are these decrees? Is it road maintenance? If we build roads from Ireland to Congo, it's probably greener grass campaign. Plus 50% migration attraction. And we can see that migration before this kicks in is fairly low. I'm sure some people in the comment section are going to be delighted. Socialism has been unlocked. Absolutely devastating news. The Ordnacrusha power plant has been relegated to the second bestest power plant in the world. We will still expand it. It's our favourite power plant, however. The rural folk have expressed their concerns about government decisions clearly favouring the interests of the industrialists. If it wasn't for the industrialists, then we wouldn't have a country, pretty much. They need to accept that we cannot always please everyone, so that is going to diminish further the power of the rural folk. And of course, we're not too happy with them after that rebellion a number of years ago. A bit worrying, however, our convoys sunk. So a hostile admiral, I wonder who that could be, sunk 55 of our convoys. And again, if we check out Munster, we can see we have that natural harbours trait. We are building a power plant at the moment, which is eating into our actual credit, which has now increased to 4.46, 4.5 million from 3 million less than 5 years ago. So do you know what? Do you know what? I was going to say that we might leave it off, but we will. We will begin the process. How many will we put in? We'll put in 2 to start with. We'll go easy. We'll go easy. Over 100 million spent in this war. And nothing has happened in the last couple of years other than the Austrians have sunk a few convoys. We've just unlocked new production methods in our, or for our textile mills, electric sewing machines, and automatic power looms. So I have enacted the 2 of those, which is going to further drive up the demand for electricity. So we're going to continue having to expand the Ordnacrusha power plant. I do, however, want to also go for elastics. And we can see that one of the things it's demanding is rubber. Now it's also getting extra silk. It has brought the profitability or the productivity up. And there is a very heavy demand for luxury clothing and normal clothing, which actually drops, if I am correct, when we go from craftsman sewing to elastics. If we do prioritize non-luxury, 728, but we will make more money this way. So we're going to start looking at some of the rubber plantations that came online during the last episode. And unfortunately, the only place that we have a rubber plantation or the ability to access rubber plantations at the moment is in the Congo, and it's not going great. We are seeing positive pop growth. So we'll add one. We will add one. We've a good chunk of construction going on at the moment. There is a massive demand for glass. It's become a problem. It's an expensive government good. And I think there is also a pretty high demand for porcelain. So we're trying to meet that demand. Hardwood also there's a very high demand for. And for timber. So as well as deforesting Connacht, we are now deforesting Munster as well. We're seeing at the moment that the trade unionists are demanding wage subsidies. But that's going to be opposed by the industrialists, so we are going to meet them halfway, and we will try and enact poor laws, which I think was one of the ones that we had to revert when we became independent day one and had a massive bureaucracy deficit. We've just had another election result. The Conservatives have taken a commanding lead over the Free Trade Party. It was 34 to 34. The last time out, and now they have a 10% lead, so I don't think we've any need to make any changes. Why does everyone in Ireland have the name Glenavy? Is this a different Glenavy to the previous ruler of the industrialists, or is this the guy that founded the university in Ulster? Because I know a Glenavy died on this episode, and I thought that it was the same guy, unless he's come back from the dead. And if he has, then the leader of the rural folk has challenged him to a duel, to which he has responded, "Alexander Doyle, you are a friendless bastard." Let them fight. And the leader of the rural folk has been killed. Like I said on the last episode, I asked if what group people who are watching the episodes would belong to if they were a simulated pop in the game, which nobody is. And the intelligentsia came out with a good chunk of support. Well, there's going to be a lot of unhappy intelligentsia, because they are not supporting the institution of poor laws, viewing them as an attempt to make poverty itself a crime. The poor are a burden on society, a crime in itself. Minus 10% enactment success chance, minus 2% industry, or I should say interest group approval. Otherwise, it's going to be minus 20% enactment success. Yeah. I mean, this is Harry Hamilton, the king, speaking. The poor are a burden on society. We're currently working on another power plant, and we've kind of gotten the cost of construction goods down a good chunk. Now, I know that previously, when it was like 20,000, there was multiple different things going on. Fabric has been kept cheap. Wood has actually started to become expensive, which is why we're mining more wood. The problem is they're electric mines, and that's why we're trying to build more power plants. I didn't even realize that we were getting close to a stable supply of power. We have established the ESB. The recent expansion of the power plants in Munster has inspired faith in a future where all of Ireland is electrified, except for the Black Valley. The Black Valley is a notorious area in County Kerry, the southwest of the country. It was the last region in the country to get electricity. It's a very difficult area to access. So everywhere in Ireland is going to get electricity except for the Black Valley for about another 100 and something years. Unlimited power. Munster gets Power Plant Pioneer for 5 years. 4K progress towards steam turbine or towards shift work. Do you know what? We'll go for how can you turn down unlimited power? And speaking of County Kerry, down here, this peninsula is the Iveragh Peninsula, and off the coast of it is Valentia Island, where they have the transatlantic cable that connected Ireland, Britain, and Europe to the United States and Canada and to America by telegraph. And presumably, it's also where they have put the electric cables, the underwater electric cables, because if we see the demands for electricity, so if we see where it's being built at the moment, or where it's being generated by, we can see that we are producing 342. And 319 is going to Hong Kong, the Niger Delta, Quebec. So presumably some Irish electricity has to be going to Manitoba and to Lancashire. An influential faction within the petty bourgeoisie. How do you pronounce this? I tend to go with the petty bourgeoisie, but nearly every Vicky 3 player that you see on YouTube or Twitch has a different pronunciation. Bourgeoisie, I think that's the best way to go. They've become frustrated with some neutrality on the poor laws. So with their support, the bill will pass, plus 15% enactment success chance, or plus 10% enactment, and we can funnel some support towards the industrialists. For the last while, we have been working towards steel frame buildings, and we are now in a position to change our construction methods. I believe we're also in a position to build the Eiffel Tower in Connacht and the Statue of Liberty in Munster. We can get elevators and zeppelins. If we take a look at the changes to the construction sector, it's going to start consuming less fabric, less wood, more glass. Is that a good thing? It's going to drive the cost up to 70. It's going to start consuming less iron. It's going to start consuming a lot more of things that we don't have. I don't think this is great. Now, it has actually knocked off the immediate cost of some things here. It might be the fact that it's just making even more money for our glass factories. Maybe that's what's going on. All the luxury Waterford Crystal that we are putting into our buildings. Now, I'm wrong, of course. The last update, or the last thing we researched, steel frame buildings, does not give us access to Zeppelins. It gives us access to researching them. 8 years, and we get airship mooring post. We can basically pretend it's the new NO 1800 expansion. I think I'm going to focus on automatic bottle blowers. It's going to be 7 years to research, but it will give us an update for our glassworks, which requires oil. So that could maybe start to expand some of the whaling stations that we have out in Indonesia. And to support it a bit, I think we're going to increase the size of our university in Leinster. Do you know what? We might stick it up by 2. All the intellectuals in the comment section are causing problems again. Some of them are warning that if the poor laws are not passed, an increasing population of unproductive poor will become an unmaintainable burden on society. We can either go with a minus 15% success chance, or a firm hand is required to stave off such a disaster. Ireland will get Malthusian arguments, plus 15% enactment success chance. When have the economic policies of Malthus ever had an adverse effect in Ireland? Up until now, any time that I've gotten the language in the classroom event, it has generally related to either the English or the Scottish. Now, however, it is relating to the peoples of the Polynesian region. So, schools should teach them to speak Oscailge, or their language is part of their heritage. So the intelligentsia gets minority language acceptance for 5 years plus 2%. The devout are going to get a minus penalty. We're also going to see minus 10% assimilation. Less radicals. Plus 20% assimilation. Now we're beginning to see a lot more radicalization, especially in Ulster. And I keep thinking to myself, I have to go and I have to institute the law for home affairs. Oh, we're already working on something. So when we get this done, if we ever get it done, we're going to look to instituting some form of internal security. And of course, we'd have to have some rambling Irish history story. Secret police. I imagine that'd be something along the lines of the special branch. So the London Metropolitan Special Branch was the first created in the world, I think in 1888, and it was set up to deal with those rascally Irish. It was the Special Irish Branch, and it dealt with basically investigating and following and dealing with the Fenians, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, who were carrying out a major bombing campaign. Well, a major bombing campaign. There was an attempt to bomb London Bridge. Tom Clark spent something like 15 years, 12 to 15 years in prison. So the London Metropolitan Special Branch was created to deal with the Irish. So now the Irish will be creating maybe a secret police to deal with all of its radicals. I was in here looking to make some changes to the budget, and our standard of living is wearing a hat. Things have gotten that good. The upper strata is prosperous. I didn't even know that this symbol could change. It's taken us, what? Close to 40 years to change the standard of living from, oh dear God help us, to we can put a hat on. So if we look at the average, they're actually paying slightly above on pretty much everything. Clothing is still an issue. Liquor is becoming not much of an issue. Porcelain, clothes and porcelain and glass. Those are the big issues at the moment. But we're getting close to a stage where we could contemplate dropping the taxes to a medium level. We'd be making only a tiny negative. Or, and what I think I will do, is put in high government wages. Comment section, look at this. plus 2% intelligentsia approval. So that will increase the standard of living of government employees, and we'll give them more money to buy things with. We still have consumption taxes on clothing, furniture, luxury clothing, luxury furniture, and services. Do you know what? They're making... Services is making a nice chunk of money. We won't go for liquor. Still can't put a consumption tax on grain. The money we'd make if we could put a consumption tax on grain. We have instituted poor laws. It took a while. We are immediately going to make an attempt, like I said, to institute some form of home affairs. No, we're not, because we need the government in power. Oh, those rascally intelligentsia, they oppose us. Or, actually, we could add the armed forces. The armed forces would become part of the Conservative Party, so our legitimacy would go up. That's handy. We will confirm that. I just want to see, will it tell us that the rural folk want to join somebody? No. Okay. So, the armed forces, it's telling us here that they want to join the Conservatives. Okay. So, we will add the armed forces to the Conservative Party, and we will confirm. And now, in our law screen, we have an opportunity to make the comment section angry by instituting secret police. You have to keep an eye on those Irish. We're still trying to meet the demand for electricity. You can see there that some buildings are reporting a shortage of it. So I'm constructing another power plant, and we are still generating a profit, but no money is coming out of the investment pool, because this is taken directly from, what would you call it, government spending. So that's actually quite impressive. We've gotten to a stage where we can take on a major power plant construction without generating a deficit. Oh no, this is terrible. James Smith of the Intelligentsia, who has been raising concerns about the secret police, has disappeared. That's absolutely, that is terrible. We should have a secret police to investigate things like this. And following the assassination, the death of their leader, the Intelligentsia has rebranded itself as the Communist Party, now led by Edward Plunkett. They are not too happy with us at the moment. And while we're here, I didn't spot this, our legitimacy was down to about 30-something%. We can push that up, however, perilously close, 4% off of the max that it can be, by kicking out the landowners. The landowners have lost so much power to the Free Trade Party predominantly, and also a bit, I think, to the Conservatives, but predominantly the industrialists, that they have been pushed out of the Conservative Party. So the armed forces have effectively taken their position, and we can confirm this change to the government. We have seen just under 10 years of unparalleled, unequaled growth in our GDP, and it has lifted us up to 14th in the world, just behind Greece, and just outside being an unrecognized major power. However, you may have spotted, every once in a while, our convoys have sunk. Keeps popping up. I was hoping that we could build some trade routes during this episode, but the few trade routes that we actually set up are becoming inactive, largely as a result of a loss of convoys, because the Austrians keep sinking them. In the next episode, I think with the newfound GDP that we have and the newfound wealth, we're going to have to go in the direction that I wasn't really planning to do, and that is to begin building a military-industrial complex that can, at the very least, deal with the Austrians, if not, even allow us to declare full independence from Great Britain itself. Thank you for joining me on this one, and I hope you will join me on the next one, because if you don't, I will know and I will send the secret police after you.